Now we'll talk about graphing, windows, zoom, trace, and turning our equations on and off. First, to graph, we access the equation editor using the y equals button, and that's in the upper left hand corner of your calculator. Go ahead and press that. Let's place a linear function in the calculator. If we wanted this equation, y equals 3x minus 4, we first go to the y equals menu. We press 3, and then we press this x, t, theta, n button, which is right here. It'll just place the x there for you so you don't have to go into the alpha menu. And a minus 4. We don't even have to press enter to be able to see the graph. We simply press the graph button in the upper right hand corner of the graphing calculator, and there's our graph. We can adjust the window in which we see the graph. One way to do this is manually, and we press the window button, which is right there. Right now it shows us that our window on the x-axis is from -10 to +10, and each tick mark, the scale, is 1 unit between the tick marks. And on the y-axis, the minimum, it'd be -10. The y-maximum is a +10, and that scale is also 1 unit between each of the tick marks. The x-res just influences how fast the graph is graphed. So don't really need to mess with that. If we wanted to change our window, we could change it from, let's say we wanted to see the graph from -5 to 7. And let's change the scale to maybe a tick mark every 2 units. And let's make this a -5 to 5. And just to play around with that, let's go ahead and hit graph. And we can see it changed our graph quite a bit. Now we do have some zoom features. The most often used features are 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Zoom box, if you wanted to zoom around a certain area of your graph, you could hit zoom box, and you have to use your cursor buttons to make the box. So let's say that we want the upper left hand corner to be here. We hit enter. And if we wanted the other corner to go down a bit, we just keep on pressing. And then let's go to the right a little bit. And now you can see really a box that is opening up. Go down a little bit more so we can get that y-intercept in there. And then go ahead and press enter. And that is the new box for the window. And we could also zoom out. If we wanted to hit zoom and zoom out, we could hit 3 and hit enter, because that zoomed out. If we wanted to zoom in, that's option 2. You can also move the cursor. Let's say we wanted to look a little closer, zoom in on our y-intercept. So we can move our cursor to that, and that's the new center of that graph window when we zoom in. The other zoom feature is a z-square, so you can zoom, make everything square if you wanted to. Let's say we go back to, first of all, a standard zoom. Standard zoom is the zoom 6. It gives us the -10 to 10, -10 to 10 with units for each of the tick marks. And let's see what the zoom square does. If we do a zoom square, then it causes our tick marks, the space between those, to be equal for both x and y. So rather than stretching our graph out horizontally, keeps it nice and square. Now we can trace a graph to see the x, y values of points along the graph. So if you wanted to hit the trace button, that's right there, and a little cursor comes up flashing, it tells you the value of the point that it's on at the time. And you can see in the upper left hand corner the equation of the graph that you've put in. So you just move your cursor left and right, and all those x, y values will change for you. Now they're not hitting nice values as we go. They're kind of all these strange decimal numbers. If we wanted to, we can key in the x value of the point that we want while we're in this trace mode and press enter, and then we'll get the XY coordinate of that place. So let's say we want to see what happens when x is 3. So we hit 3, and you see at the bottom left hand corner of the screen it says x equals 3. Go ahead and hit enter. The cursor will jump to the place on the graph where x is 3, and it also shows you at the bottom the XY coordinate of that point. Now you can enter more than one equation in the editor. If we wanted to go ahead and put this equation in, we can put that into the y2 part of the editor. Let's say put a negative 1/2 x plus 5. Okay, now we'll see both of the equations in the editor, and when we hit our graph button, we'll see both equations in the window. Now, the trace function also has another feature when we have more than one graph. We're able to trace both graphs one at a time. So if we hit the trace button so that we're in trace mode, you see we're still tracing on that first equation that we put in, and we can tell that because it says y sub 1 is 3x minus 4, and that was the equation we had in y sub 1. If we wanted to trace our second graph, all you need to do is hit the cursor button up or down, and it'll take you to the next graph. It'll tell you here what the equation of that graph was, and you have the XY coordinates of that graph as well. Now let's say that you were working with these equations for a while and you wanted to be able to keep the equation in your graph so you don't have to type it all over again, but you don't actually want to see that graph on the screen at the moment. What you can do is scroll onto that graph's equal sign. Let's say we want to turn this graph off. You hit enter, and when you come off of that equal sign, you'll notice that it's not highlighted anymore. So you have turned that graph off. Now when we hit the graph button, you'll see only the first graph that we've put into the equation editor.